You need to turn around. Deliveries use the back gate. The voice sliced through the morning breeze like gravel on silk, sharp, dry, unapologetic. At precisely 7:42 a.m., under the golden hush of a coastal sunrise, the iron gates of Coral Bay Estate stood sealed, and just beyond them, behind a glossy golf cart bearing the Hoa logo, was Meredith Vaughn, 56. Blonde, pearls tighter on her neck, authority tighter in her voice. She didn't raise it. She didn't need to. Because to her, the woman stepping out of the matte black SUV wasn't someone to be reasoned with. She was someone to be redirected. Amara Blake's left foot touched the cobblestone just as Meredith added, "This is a private community. You can't just pull off the highway and expect access. We've had issues lately." She didn't know the woman in front of her, didn't know the name, didn't care to ask, but she saw skin, sneakers, and silence and assumed stranger, intrusion, maybe even threat. Amara didn't respond, not right away. She shut the car door gently. The click was soft, but final. Then she turned and looked at Meredith, but at the gate still closed. Then at the keypad. Then at Meredith again. "My name's Amara," she said, voice calm, barely above the surf behind them. "I'm trying to get home." Meredith blinked, then smiled thin, forced, managerial. "And where exactly is home?" Amara reached into her pocket, pulled out her ID, and extended it without a word. Meredith took it with 2 fingers, like it might be counterfeit or contagious. Before she even looked, she said, "We've had a lot of people try this. Flash a nice ID. Give a fake name. Sorry, I need to call this in." She turned to her radio, not noticing or choosing not to see the name on the card. "Amara Lee Blake, owner, Lot 7, Coastal View, corner property." Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change, and we're glad you're here. Now, back to Amara. Meredith pressed a button. "Gate 3. I've got an unconfirmed entry, possibly delivery or guest. No code provided. Sending photo now." She lifted her phone, snapped Amara's face. No permission, no pause. Like she was cataloging a package or evidence. Amara exhaled slowly. Still no anger in her breath, just calculation. She'd seen the script before different actors, same lines. At 23, it was a bouncer outside her own launch party. At 29, a developer who asked whose car she was driving. At 35, a donor gala where they mistook her for catering. And now, at 41, it was this gate, this woman, this moment. Meredith looked up from her phone. You can wait outside the gate until security verifies. Shouldn't take more than 20 minutes. She smiled again, but this time, it wasn't a smile at all. Just polished control, just polished contempt. Amara stepped back, looked at the horizon. The waves didn't stop. The sky didn't blink, but something inside her shifted. The gate had just closed, but it wouldn't stay closed for long. Not when she owned the view behind it. Meredith was still on the radio, voice crisp with assumed authority. "She claims to be a resident, says her name is Amara Blake. Can someone check the lease records for Lot 7? A crackle of static, then copy that, verifying. She turned back to Amara, her expression flat polite in the way a blade is polished. "You'll need to wait by the curb until we confirm. We've had impersonators try to enter the estate before, especially lately." Amara said nothing. She took the steps back, stood beside her car, and looked past the gate through the palms, toward the sea. The estate sat quiet, but she could feel the weight of eyes from the whole guardhouse tucked near the hedges. The cameras rotating, discreet and all-seeing, and the subtle tightening in her chest, not fear, but memory. 12 years ago, she tried to tour a co-op in Brentwood. Her assistant, White, 22, intern, was ushered in. She was asked if she was someone's driver. She'd smiled then too, the same way she did now. A closed smile, not submission storage, a patience built over decades. A white Lexus rolled up behind her, engine humming. Inside sat a woman in her 60s, sunglasses, wide-brimmed straw hat, HOA badge on her dashboard like a sheriff's star. She rolled down her window just enough to speak. "Excuse me, are you lost?" Amara turned slightly. "No, you can't block the gate. Some of us have places to be." "I'm not blocking it," Amara replied, voice even. "I'm waiting for someone to verify I live here." The woman's eyebrows lifted like that was the punchline to a joke. "Sweetheart," she began, in that syrupy tone that always came before the slap. But before she could finish, another voice cut in from behind. "You good here, ma'am?" It was a young man, 20-something, groundskeeper uniform, name tag read Luis. His skin was tan, his gaze uncertain. He stood near the sidewalk, holding a rake, pausing mid-task. Amara turned. "I'm good, thank you." Luis nodded, but he didn't walk away. He lingered, watching. The woman in the Lexus scoffed and drove through the side gate, now open just enough for resonance. It closed again behind her with a cold metallic sigh. Meredith's radio buzzed. Lot 7 record show's name. Amara Elise Blake. Deed registered 16 months ago. Coastal corner. Full ownership. Meredith froze, just for a second. Then her voice came back, too fast, too controlled. "Well, she still needs a resident tag. That's protocol." She stepped forward, trying to regain ground. "You should have displayed it on your dash. We've discussed this at meetings." Amara looked at her, not with anger, just stillness. "I've never missed a payment," she said, "never missed a meeting. I just don't go to the ones where I'm not welcome." Meredith's lips parted, a breath caught somewhere between defense and doubt. Before she could respond, another SUV pulled up. This one black, polished, plates from the city. A woman in a blazer stepped out, tablet in hand. Earbud blinking blue. Nia Thompson, Amara's executive assistant. She didn't speak to Meredith. She walked straight to Amara. "Protocol for has been activated," she said quietly. "HOA compliance documents are being pulled. Video feed from this gate is sensing to legal." Amara nodded once, then turned back to Meredith. "Scan the ID again," she said calmly. "Or don't, either way. This conversation is already part of the record." Meredith opened her mouth, but this time, no words came out. Because behind her, Luis had lifted his phone, not recording, just holding it, watching. And from the guardhouse window, another face now stared. This wasn't just a moment. It was the beginning of something breaking. And Amara, she wasn't waiting for permission anymore. She was waiting for the gate to remember who paid for the hinges. Inside the whole control room hidden behind tinted glass and tropical landscaping, Terry Mendez, 38, head of security, leaned forward in his chair. The screen in front of him showed for angles of the front gate, zoomed in, crystal clear. Amara's face filled one quadrant. Nia, now tapping on her tablet, filled another. Terry squinted. He recognized Amara. At least he should have. She wasn't loud, never made a fuss. But her name, it sat at the top of the estate's ownership ledger. She paid on time. Her lot funded nearly a third of HOA's annual dues. And yet, here she was outside the gate, being questioned like a trespasser. Terry reached for the intercom. Down by the road, Meredith's voice cracked with tension. "Well, we're just trying to maintain security. I don't see what the problem is." Amara didn't flinch. "The problem," Nia said, not looking up, "is assuming someone's presence is a threat based on nothing but your comfort." Meredith turned to her, eyes narrowing. "And who are you?" Nia looked up now, her voice steady. "I'm the person your bylaws require you to answer to. When a registered resident activates internal audit review." A silence followed. It wasn't confusion. It was calculation. Meredith was choosing whether to double down or back out. Then the gate buzzed. It didn't swing open yet, but the light on the keypad turned green. A voice came through the speaker. "Terry. Ms. Blake, I've confirmed your ownership and access. Apologies for the delay." But before the gate could open, Meredith stepped in front of it. "I still think we need to follow protocol. The board hasn't been notified of this." Amara spoke, cutting clean through the moment. I am the board. Her voice wasn't loud, but it was undeniable. I hold the largest developer stake in this community. I own Lot 7, Lot 9, and half of what your backyard rests on. She stepped forward, eyes locked. And if this gate doesn't open in the next 30 seconds, you'll be locking out your majority funder. Louis blinked. Even Meredith stepped back, but she wasn't done. You can't just override the board. You think that's what this is? Amara said quietly. This isn't override. This is exposure. Nia added, whole article for B allows for emergency override if discrimination or obstruction is documented. It's been documented. Meredith's face drained. She looked around, no allies left. Louis lowered his phone slowly. A couple in athletic gear had stopped jogging nearby, watching. One had their camera out. No one was hiding it anymore. Then came the soft whir of machinery. The gate slid open. Quiet, composed, and final. Amara didn't walk through immediately. She stood at the threshold, then turned back. To be clear, Meredith, this isn't about protocol. It's about power. Meredith swallowed hard. You don't look like someone who lives here, she said softly, almost to herself. Amara held her gaze. That's the point. From the hollow window, Terry leaned back in his chair. He tapped a key. A soft red light blinked. Protocol 4. Escalated. Logged. Monitored. Then he turned to the junior tech beside him. Clip the footage, he said. Send it to corporate compliance. The kid blinked. You sure? Terry nodded. She didn't yell, didn't threaten, but we just watched her dismantle the board with one sentence. He looked back at the screen. About time someone did. Amara didn't rush. She stepped past the open gate like the street still belonged to her. Because it did. The estate behind it, 5 bedrooms, wraparound deck. To oceanfront levels had her name on every deed, wire, and tax bill, and still. She walked like a woman trespassing on her own breath. Nia followed, silent. Meredith didn't. She lingered near the keypad, frozen in her pearls. Eyes darting from Amara to the passersby, because now people were watching, and Amara hadn't said more than 20 words. The difference wasn't noise. It was control. Halfway up the private lane, a voice called out from a trimmed walkway. Excuse me, what's going on? It was Graham Ellis, 62, Hoa vice chair, recently retired attorney, and serial complainer about hedge height and mailbox design. He wore his usual tennis whites and entitlement. Meredith rushed toward him like backup had finally arrived. She refused to follow protocol. She said quickly, no resident tag, no advance notice. She's with some assistant. Graham adjusted his sunglasses and glanced at Amara, still walking. Who is she? Amara stopped, turned, and for the first time since the gate, smiled. But not for them. For herself. Still asking who, after the gates open. Graham blinked. I'm just trying to understand what happened. What happened? Nia said, her tone calm, but edged. Is that your board blocked a homeowner with full deed rights, refused to verify her name, and attempted to override internal security based on appearance. Graham scoffed. That's a very serious accusation. It's not an accusation, Amara said. It's a report, being filed right now. She held up her phone, not recording, just open, a real-time transcript of the exchange. Screen glowing with timestamp notes. Flashback 4 years ago, Palm Springs. Amara in line to check into a resort she co-owned through a silent partner deal. She handed over her ID. The concierge glanced once, then asked, are you with one of the performers? The assumption stung, not because it was new, but because it had never changed. Back in the present, Amara continued walking. But now, the estate was waking up. A few more joggers slowed. A dog walker paused, earbuds out. Neighbors who never waved were watching now. Nia checked her tablet. 3 board members have opened the compliance thread, she said quietly. And Terry just uploaded the gate footage. The clip's been duplicated to cloud backup and HR legal. Good, Amara said. Meredith's voice broke the tension again, strained and defensive. We didn't mean anything by it. There have been issues with strangers posing as guests lately. Amara turned. You didn't question my identity for safety. She took a step closer, not threatening, just real. You questioned it for comfort. Meredith blinked. I don't understand. Yes, Amara said. You do. You just don't want to admit it out loud. Graham stepped in again, trying to de-escalate. Look, let's not make this a spectacle. Nia's gaze sharpened. You made it one the moment you called security instead of reading a name. They reached the front door. Amara's fingerprint opened the smart lock. No one spoke, because no one had to. She stepped inside. The sea breeze followed her in. Then she turned around in the doorway, looked down the lane where Graham and Meredith still stood and spoke just once more. I live here. The words didn't rise. They landed like a verdict. And from a second-story balcony, someone was filming, not for drama, not for clicks, just to remember how quiet power sounded when it stopped asking for permission. The sun was higher now. The golden calm of early morning had shifted into full daylight. But the air wasn't warm. It was wired. Within 20 minutes of the gate opening, the whole email thread had hit 38 replies. Subject line, purge an incident at Gate 3. Attached. Video footage, transcript, photo stills. But what none of them expected was what came next. From across the lane, a voice called out, "She's not wrong." Everyone turned. It was Marla Kingston, 47, divorced, mother of 2, a resident of Lot 12 for 6 years. She stood on her porch steps, arms crossed, eyes sharp. I've seen it, she continued. Oh, it doesn't act like this when it's Bob or Karen or anyone walking their labradoodle. But when my niece visited last year, brown skin, same questions, same tone. Meredith stiffened. That's not true. We follow procedure. No, Marla said, stepping forward, you follow people. Then, from farther down the road, another voice. I work nights. I've had deliveries denied because the driver didn't look right. It was Dev Patel, 33, software engineer, quiet neighbor, now speaking up. They called me twice to confirm I knew my own guests. Meredith glanced at Graham, seeking backup. But even Graham was silent now, face unreadable. Nia tapped Amara's tablet. Notifications were rolling in fast. Dozens of residents have opened the footage, she said. Some were replying. We've got a mini uprising. Amara didn't smile, but her breath deepened like a weight was shifting. Inside the house, she sat at the kitchen island, modern, open, ocean view. She hadn't built it for defense, but today, it felt like a fortress of reason. Louis stood just outside, still in his uniform, hands clasped respectfully. I wasn't sure what to do, he said. Amara looked at him. You paused. That's enough. Then she leaned forward slightly. And you didn't reach for your phone first. You looked for truth. That matters more. He nodded, a little stunned. Gracias. Back on the Hoa thread, Terry had added a new comment, advising full review of incident under Section 3.1. Board discretion must be accountable to equity clauses. It was a quiet bomb, because everyone on that thread knew. Section 3.1 allowed for immediate ethics evaluation of any board action deemed discriminatory. And now there was footage, eyewitnesses, a live digital trail. Outside again, Meredith tried to reassert calm. This is all being misunderstood. Graham added, maybe we mishandled it, but that doesn't mean it was malicious. Amara stepped onto the porch. She didn't raise her voice, but her words came with gravity. I didn't call you out. I called it out. This system. This habit of deciding who belongs not by law, not by record, but by look, by vibe, by gatekeeper instinct. She paused. I've walked through too many doors where I had to prove I wasn't lost. The street was silent, not from guilt, from realization. And then, from the sidewalk, Marla again. You shouldn't have had to walk through this one like that. Amara's gaze met hers. I won again. And just then, her phone buzzed. Nia read the screen. Legal just confirmed. The whole board has 7 prior complaints about gate discrimination. None escalated, 3 suppressed. Amara's eyes didn't widen, just narrowed. Not shock, just clarity. This isn't about today. she said, her voice like still water. It's about how long this has been allowed to feel normal. And as she stepped back inside, she left the door open. Not as an invitation, as a statement. She didn't need the gate anymore. She was already on the inside. 25 minutes later, the whole board went silent. Not out of reflection, but retreat. The group chat paused. The replies stopped mid-thread. Even Meredith left her phone face down on the meeting table at the community clubhouse. The emergency session had begun. They called it a clarification huddle. They called it damage control. But what it really was a last defense. Inside the whole boardroom, white walls, long oak table, bottled water arranged like court evidence. Meredith sat at one end, Graham at the other. 3 board members dialed in on Zoom. Their faces half lit, expressions half ready. Let's be clear, Meredith began, her voice thin and shaky. She escalated. She brought in a corporate assistant. She bypassed the chain of communication. She owns 3 lots, Graham said flatly. There is no chain above her. No one laughed. Board member 2 on Zoom, Gina chimed in. What does the deed actually say? Do we have authority over her properties? Graham exhaled. Not really. Her developer stake gives her override power on procedural votes. And if she files formal complaint under the equity clause. He didn't finish the sentence, because they all knew what came next. Removal. And that's when the system kicked into survival mode. Back at Amara's estate, Nia refreshed her screen. Their Slack just locked. Internal chat frozen. They've gone into non-digital mode. That fast? Amara asked. Like a switch, meetings moved off record. Predictable, she said, standing by the window. The ocean behind her didn't flinch. It never did. Flashback, Chicago 2013. A boardroom with 8 men. Amara, the only woman, the only black voice. She pointed out a breach in their investment framework. They took a vote. Then, over drinks, joked about her being a bit too sharp for comfort. She left the night and founded her own firm. Today, that firm had outvalued theirs 6-1. Back to the present, Luis was still near the porch, eyes down, almost uncertain if he should still be here. You ever get tired of this? He asked, voice careful. Amara turned. Tired of what? The needing proof, the waiting to be believed. She didn't answer immediately. Then, I used to, now I just document. She stepped toward him, handed him a folded slip, a thank you bonus already logged by Nia. For not pretending you didn't see. Luis took it slowly. I wasn't sure if speaking would get me fired. Speaking won't, she said, but silence might. A knock at the door. Nia opened it. Graham. No Meredith. No pearls. Just a man holding an envelope. I came alone, he said quickly. They don't know I'm here. Nia nodded, stepped aside. Graham didn't sit. I won't make excuses, he said. But I'll say this. Most of us have been complicit longer than we'd like to admit. Amara watched him closely. He placed the envelope on the counter. Meeting minutes from the last for equity complaints, the ones they buried. You'll want to see page 3. Then he added, voice softer. You didn't just walk through the gate. You opened something we'd nailed shut years ago. Amara's expression didn't shift, but something in the room did. A subtle realignment like gravity remembering itself. She didn't say thank you. Just stay reachable. Graham nodded, left. Outside, the estate was quiet again. But it wasn't peace. It was pressure. Something was building. And the board? They were no longer in a meeting. They were in retreat. Because when power gets questioned by someone who doesn't raise their voice, it doesn't know where to hide. At 4:07 p.m., a second envelope arrived. This one by courier stamped with a whole crest. Official tone, stiff paper, neutral fonts. But the words were sharp. We regret the misunderstanding and are initiating a voluntary review of gate procedures. No further action will be necessary at this time. The HOA board. Amara didn't flinch. She'd seen that language before. Not in letters and lawsuits, in media statements, in HR apologies written by people who'd never once said sorry aloud. She slid the envelope aside, untouched. Voluntary review, Nia asked, raising an eyebrow. Amara looked out the window. They're trying to walk backwards in clean shoes. Down the street, the whole clubhouse door stayed closed. But emails leaked. Texts slipped. Luis received a screenshot from a cousin who worked in landscaping. HOA internal message. Minimize exposure. Do not engage. Wait for legal cooling period. They weren't planning change. They were planning silence. Flashback. Atlanta, 2016. Amara bought into a private equity firm, Silent Partner. At the annual gala, a waiter asked her which table she was serving. She'd worn navy that night. Understated. Classic. She bought out the fund the next year. It now trades under her name. Nia slid her laptop over. Legal's ready. I've drafted the override letter. Amar nodded. Add the clause, she said. Clause 9.03 breach of equity protocol. That's removal. I know. She stood. The evening sun was cooling. Shadows stretched across the marble floor. This was never about the gate, she said quietly. It was about everything behind it. 20 minutes later, the override request hit HOA's legal inbox. It cited failure to verify a registered resident, documented bias in gate protocol, suppression of 3 prior complaints, obstruction of board accountability under Article 3.1. It was signed. Amara Lease Blake, majority developer stakeholder, Coral Bay Estates. No bold, no underlining, just facts. Across the estate, residents had begun talking. Not loudly but pointedly. Marla posted a thread on the private neighborhood forum titled, "It shouldn't take a lawsuit to be let through a gate." Within an hour, it had 46 likes, 19 comments, and one very nervous message from Hoa asking her to tone it down for community unity. She posted the message too. Meanwhile, Meredith sat in her home office. Curtains closed, laptop screen dim. She typed, deleted, typed again. She wasn't used to losing control. Not like this. She opened her drawer, pulled out the printed HOA bylaws. Page 13, Section 9. The words were staring back. Any action deemed discriminatory or obstructive, when documented and verified, shall be grounds for removal or reassignment of board member privileges, pending majority developer consensus. She'd helped write the clause. Never thought it would be used against her. Back at the estate, Amara sat by the glass doors, ocean glowing in the distance. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt inevitable. I didn't come here to fight, she told Nia. But if I'm forced to, I don't lose. Nia smiled faintly. You never raise your voice. Amar replied, I've learned that silence is louder when you make people lean in. The sun dipped lower. The gate that once denied her now sat open, unlocked, unguarded, irrelevant. Because once you dismantle the need for permission, you don't wait to be let in. You walk through and take the room with you. The whole special session was scheduled for 6 p.m. Officially, it was called to review procedural inconsistencies. Unofficially, it was war. The digital invitation had been sent to every homeowner in Coral Bay Estates. Mandatory attendance, emergency status. Inside the clubhouse, cold lights, leather chairs, coffee no one drank. Meredith arrived first. Hair pulled tight, face tighter. She carried a folder with prepared remarks full of terms like miscommunication, neighborhood harmony, and respectful tone. But what she hadn't prepared for was how many chairs were already filled. By 6:08, the room was packed. Even residents who hadn't attended a board meeting in years were there. Some stood in the back, some held printed copies of Marla's forum post, and all of them had seen the footage. The gate, the silence, the dignity, the refusal to move. Amara didn't arrive first. She didn't have to. She arrived at 6:11, walked through the front doors like nothing had changed, because she didn't have to announce what she already owned. Nia followed, tablet in hand. They didn't take the center table. They sat on the side, but somehow, that seat became the axis of the room. Graham called the meeting to order. His voice was even, but his hands gave him away, tapping the table, restless. Tonight's agenda begins with a community concern regarding gate protocols and HOA conduct. Meredith stood. Before she could speak, a hand went up. Marla. I moved to skip the statement. We've read it. Light murmurs. A few nods. One person clapped stop quickly. Meredith's jaw tightened. I think it's important we address what happened with transparency and professionalism. You mean spin, said Dev from the back. This time, the claps didn't stop. Meredith's voice sharpened. This isn't a trial. We're a community board. We manage lawns, not lawsuits. Amara finally spoke. Then why did you act like security enforcement? Silence. She stood now, calm, centered. You closed a gate that wasn't yours to close. You questioned ownership without reading a name. And when confronted with truth, you tried to bury it under protocol. Graham interjected, trying to regain order. We're not here to attack each other. No, Amara said. We're here to confront a pattern. She looked around the room. How many of you have had guests stopped? Hands went up. How many of you didn't report it because you thought it wouldn't matter? More hands. How many of you thought you were alone? A pause. Then almost everyone raised a hand. Nia opened her tablet, projected a slide onto the screen behind them. 3 prior complaints. 0 follow-ups. 0 resolutions. Another slide. Clause 9.03 invoked. Board member removal eligible by majority vote. Murmurs grew louder. Meredith's voice cracked. This isn't fair. I've given 10 years to this community. And in 10 minutes, Amara said, you showed us exactly who you've been giving it to. The vote was swift. Paper ballots, no speeches, no second chances. When the count came back, Graham didn't smile. He just read it out. By a vote of 26-4, Meredith Vaughn is hereby removed from the board of Coral Bay Estates. The room didn't cheer. They exhaled. Not victory, not revenge, just air that had been held too long. Meredith gathered her folder, but the pages slipped from her hands. No one helped her pick them up. She didn't look back as she walked out. Afterward, some people stayed to talk, some left in silence. But everyone felt the shift. And Amara? She didn't linger. She walked back into the night with the same quiet presence she entered with. No crown, no stage, just gravity. As she stepped into her car, Louise texted just 2 words. Thank you, she replied. Not done yet, because power wasn't about the vote. It was about what came next. By morning, the neighborhood didn't look different, but it felt different. Attention had drained out of the hedges. The gate guard nodded a little slower. The residents walked a little straighter, not because of fear, but recognition. Something had shifted, and once a truth is spoken out loud, it echoes. At 8:12 a.m., Amara opened her email. Subject: HOA internal policy reset, immediate action required. Attached was a draft. Mandatory bias training for all gate staff. New guest protocol with facial ID and verified resident lists. Reinstatement of Section 3.1 as standing item in monthly agenda. And at the bottom, a quiet line. All board votes involving resident complaints to require developer's signature. She closed the laptop, looked out at the ocean, then turned to Nia. Didn't expect them to fold this fast. They didn't fold, Nia said. They flinched. Flashback. Davos. Private dinner. Amara seated between 2 World Bank chairs. Introduced as support staff for the hedge fund founder who was actually her client. She didn't correct them. She waited until dessert, then offered to buy their fund at 30% above market cash. They didn't forget her name after that. Luis knocked once on the glass, now upgraded with smart privacy tint. He held up a document, his formal statement about the gate incident. I don't want them firing me in 6 months quietly. You won't be fired, Amar said. Taking the paper, you'll be promoted. He smiled, unsure if she was serious. She was. Later that afternoon, a small box was delivered to her doorstep. No return address. Inside, Meredith's HOA badge. And a typed note, you win, but you didn't have to make it public. Amara folded the note, not in anger and understanding, because that was the difference between her and Meredith. Meredith thought this was about being seen. Amara knew it was about being unseen for too long. That evening, Marla rang the doorbell. No meeting, no drama, just a visit. I brought wine, she said, and maybe a little closure. They sat on the back deck. The sunset stretched long across the horizon. The sky didn't rush. "I've lived here 6 years," Marla said, sipping. "Watch people get profiled, warned, labeled quietly. I told myself it wasn't that bad." "You weren't wrong," Amara said. "You were just comfortable." Marla nodded. "Not anymore." By the end of the week, HOA forums buzzed with unfamiliar energy. Should we rotate board seats more often? Why do we still use visual ID at the gates? What would equitable governance actually look like? And every time someone asked who started the shift, the answer was quiet but clear. That new woman, Lot 7. The one who didn't shout. The one who just stood there. Back at the estate, Amara stood in her home office. A blueprint was projected on the wall. Community Equity Review Model, Phase 1. "What's next?" Nia asked, typing notes. Amara smiled. "Now we build something that can't be gated. Because justice isn't just removing a barrier. It's redesigning the map." The first presentation happened on a Thursday. No press, no podium. Just a living room full of neighbors, folding chairs, real coffee, no scripts. Projected on the screen was a simple title. "From Permission to Presence, a new model for shared space." Amara stood beside the image, calm as ever. No title card, no ego, just a woman with receipts and a plan. "HOA," she began, was supposed to mean community. She clicked once. Slide. Homeowners Association, Estate, 1964. Original purpose, shared maintenance. Current function, gatekeeping literal and cultural. Another click. "When I moved here, I didn't ask to be celebrated. I asked to be respected." She paused. "I wasn't." Flashback, first week living at Coral Bay. She waved at a neighbor. He locked his car. She offered a hello. He offered suspicion. And so she learned silence was safer than introducing herself. "Until now, equity doesn't begin at the board table," she said. "It begins at the mailbox, at the sidewalk, at the gate." She laid out the plan. Not just new gate policies, new language, new voting rules. A rotating advisory council made up of non-board residents, transparency logs, a mentorship program for young residents looking to run for board roles in the future. A neighborhood built on dignity, not default. Some nodded, some looked nervous. One man in the back raised a hand. "I'm not saying I disagree," he began, voice wary. "But do we really need all this? Isn't it just overcorrecting?" Amar met his gaze. "You don't need it," she said, "because you've never been asked to prove you belong in your own driveway." A silence swept the room. Not shame, just recognition. After the meeting, Dev caught up with her. "That thing you said about the sidewalk being the starting point." "Yes," he smiled. "I'm going to run for the board." Amar returned the smile. "Then let's make sure the path isn't uphill just for you." By the following week, HOA bylaws were in draft revision. Marla was appointed interim ethics liaison. Luis accepted a new title, community operations lead, the first time. That position was offered to non-board staff. And Amara? She declined all board nominations. "I don't need the seat," she told Nia. "I own the table." That weekend, she hosted a community brunch. Simple food, folding tables, open gates. A family with 3 generations came from Lot 21. The youngest, a girl, maybe 7, stared at Amara for a long moment, then asked, "Do you live in the biggest house?" Amara knelt, looked her in the eye. "No," she said, "but I hope I live in the bravest one." And as the guests laughed, ate, stayed longer than planned, the sound carried. Past the gate, past the street, into the corners of a neighborhood that was learning to see again. Because change doesn't always begin with noise. Sometimes it begins with a woman who just refuses to back away from her own front door. 2 months passed. The gate hadn't closed on the wrong person since. No more questioning deliveries by the color of the driver's hand. No more clipboard whispers. No more "Are you sure this is your guest?" Because now the rules had names, and the names had weight. The Coral Bay News letterings, a single-page PDF no one read, was now 10 pages deep. Headline: New Era at the Bay, Community by Design. Subhead: From policy to presence, how a quiet revolution redefined a neighborhood. Amara's name wasn't on the front page. She didn't need it to be. But her blueprint, it was everywhere. Flashback, a rooftop in Johannesburg. She was 28, negotiating a cross-continent merger. All men at the table, all twice her age. They underestimated her until she spoke fluent Zulu and made 3 of them realize the deal was hers before she even walked in. She'd learned then. Power didn't need a crown. It needed fluency in silence, in systems, in strategy. Back at Coral Bay, the gatekeeper post had a new hire. A woman, middle-aged, soft eyes, firm voice. She didn't skim people. She greeted them. Her training manual was written by Luis and Amara. Page 1 read, "Your job is not to protect a wall. Your job is to protect welcome." One afternoon, Meredith returned, not to reclaim, to reflect. She stood at the outer edge of the estate, didn't step in, didn't have to. She saw the change not just in policy, but posture. A teenage boy skateboarded past her, nodding at the gatekeeper, who nodded back like a peer. Meredith exhaled. She had once believed order was what kept a place together. Now she saw it was belonging. Meanwhile, Amara walked the path behind her home, a coastal trail that wrapped around the cliffs. She paused at the overlook, wind sweeping through her curls. Nia approached, holding a tablet. "Press wants a quote. They're doing a piece on whole reform." Amara took the tablet, then handed it back. "No quote. None. Let them walk the neighborhood. That's the quote." The next board vote brought in the most diverse lineup Coral Bay had ever seen. Retirees, young professionals, single parents, first-time homeowners. Even Dev, who won his seat by unanimous vote. He placed a framed photo on the boardroom wall, a still image from the gate security footage. Amara, standing still, back straight, eyes calm. Caption: "Entry is not a privilege. It's a right when you've already built the door." And across the country, HOA letters started asking for the Coral Bay model, because the story traveled, not just through articles, but through whispers. "Did you hear about the CEO who got blocked in her own estate?" Yeah. She didn't yell. She rewrote the bylaws. She fired the board and fed the neighborhood. "What's her name again?" And every time it was said, it sounded less like scandal, more like blueprint, more like standard. Amara didn't watch the stories. She didn't retweet, didn't comment. She just walked her own street, nodding to neighbors no longer strangers as they passed. Because her legacy wasn't a moment at a gate. It was 1,000 unlocked ones behind her. The sun rose over Coral Bay with the same soft gold it always had. Waves lapped the shore, palm leaves swayed in rhythm. Nothing dramatic, and yet everything had changed. On the first day of the new quarter, Amara received a small envelope, handwritten, no logo. Inside was a folded note from Luis. "The gate clicks open smoother now, but not because we oiled the hinges." She smiled. Not wide, just enough for memory to feel seen. Across the estate, children walked to school without their parents being shadowed. New residents moved in without whisper campaigns. Guests arrived without interrogation. And the guardhouse? Its glass wasn't tinted anymore, because visibility had become the rule, not the exception. At the clubhouse, Dev chaired his first full meeting. His gavel was made from reclaimed wood, handcrafted by a resident artist. On it was etched one word: access. Not order, not rules, just access. Flashback, DC, 2020. Amara at a round table on tech equity. A senator asked if she believed Black leaders had a special burden in these spaces. She replied, "We don't carry a burden, we carry a memory of every gate we had to open with our own breath." In the present, Amara sat beneath her coastal veranda. Same house, same view. But now, she wasn't a silent anomaly. She was a precedent, a signal. Nia joined her with a new proposal in hand, a non-profit incubator for inclusive neighborhood planning. "Cities are calling," she said. "They want the Coral Bay model on a national scale." Amara read the cover page, then set it down gently. "We don't scale," she said. "We replicate. With care, with context, with people. Then came a call from Geneva, another from Toronto, one from Johannesburg. Poetic, really. And Amara? She didn't answer right away because she was walking down her own street where once she had been profiled. Now she was profiled only in praise. At the community gate, a child waved at her. She waved back, the same path, but no longer proving she belonged. Now, she simply was. No press, no performance. Just a black woman, on her own street, in her own home, having changed the rules without raising her voice. The gate still closed every evening. It still clicked with precision. But now, it no longer asked, "Who are you?" It simply whispered, "Welcome home."